So that is a very common way of practicing, but that is the ground for becoming Bodhisattva, for example. And Bodhisattva, and then you become Buddha. You don't become Buddha just like that. It's very difficult because we have this tendency of all the negative thoughts and actions in us. So it is not so easy for us to get rid of all of them, easily. It takes time. So it's all about adopting this mental attitude, the positive mental attitude as our habit. So once when you develop that as your habit, and when it is developed as your habit, then that becomes our nature. So then you naturally, become a very good human being. And so therefore mind training, we speak of mind training right now, but the mind training actually is the ground again for developing a bodhicitta, as I said, because that's how you become a Buddha. First you become very good Dharma practitioner, a very good human being, and that very good human being, mentally you develop that into Bodhisattva, and Bodhisattva becomes a Buddha. So it's all about training our mind on the path, and gradually overcoming of these karmas and negative emotions, and then one develops as a good human being, and then a Bodhisattva and a Buddha. Yes. So now in the as far as bodhicitta, this bodhicitta and bodhisattva vows, traditionally in Buddha, during Buddha's time and nowadays, there is a tradition where we give bodhisattva. It's called bodhisattva vows. That is just to say that you have received this bodhisattva vow, where you, from a spiritual master, you receive the bodhisattva vow, and because then that is actually the point where we kind of plant a seed of bodhisattva in you, and seed to reach enlightenment. So that is actually named as called receiving of the bodhisattva vows. But right now I was explaining you about the bodhicitta. Okay, it's a little different, because bodhicitta is the mind of enlightened being. That is something that and mind of enlightened being is something that we have to develop. It's not something that we can receive from other people. It's not possible. Like, for example, we cannot receive loving kindness, compassion from other people, isn't it? It's not at all possible. Like our parents, they can give us everything, but loving kindness, compassion, how can they give their love? And in the sense, they can teach us about loving kindness, compassion, but they cannot give their love and their compassion like a gift to us. It is us who has to develop that in us. So therefore the bodhicitta, as I was saying, sometimes people think, okay, maybe I go to a teacher and receive the bodhisattva vow, and after having received the bodhisattva vow, you think that I have achieved the bodhicitta. You haven't. What we have done is that we have planted the ground, and now we have to sow the seed, and we have to actually develop that into a fruit. That is the reason why there is this tradition of giving the bodhisattva vows. And in the Buddha's teaching, it says it's a very good method, because that is the way of planting the seed in limitless sentient beings, and that's the way how they will be connected to Dharma and reach enlightenment eventually. That is actually the reason behind doing this ritual practice, the tradition ritual practice. So now, as I said that every sentient being is capable of reaching enlightenment, because we have the bodhicitta in us, and we have to develop bodhicitta. So therefore, now it is dependent on the individual, on the practitioner, how well he or she can develop this bodhicitta. There are few things, for example, like karma plays a very important role here as well, because according to Buddha's teaching, it is said that a person who has the merit, we call it merit, of enough merit to cultivate bodhicitta, to develop bodhicitta, then he and she can develop that, because bodhicitta is not, as ultimate bodhicitta is not received, it cannot be given by the spiritual master. You have to develop that. That's what I said. And how we develop that is through accumulating merit. So accumulating merit is like the practicing of the 6 paramitas, like paramita of generosity, paramita of moral ethics, and paramita of patience, and paramita of diligence, shamatha meditation, concentration, and wisdom. 6 paramitas we speak of. That is actually the path. And through that we accumulate merit. And by accumulating merit, merit is the antidote. Okay? So merit is the antidote, and because of the merit, it has the ability, it is the antidote for removing of the non-virtuous actions, the accumulation of non-virtuous karmas in you. So when non-virtuous action, the karma is removed by virtuous action, accumulated virtuous action, naturally one's mind is developed into bodhicitta. As I was saying earlier, that in order to reach enlightenment, we have to give up obscurations. So that is how, because this is the path. We are on the path to reach enlightenment. So yes, accumulation of merit. And I'm saying this because sometimes people think that we can develop loving kindness, compassion, or unconditional loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, through meditation. I think people misunderstand that as the realization of emptiness. Realization of emptiness is actually the achieving of the bodhicitta. There you have already achieved it. So you can't really develop, let's say, bodhicitta through just sitting and meditating. In the sense like, in the sense of because it is not something that is achieved through developing your focus on that. Bodhicitta I'm talking about, the enlightened mind is not something that through, So therefore it is the true nature of the mind, which is the bodhicitta, and it is achieved by giving up the ignorance. So, so yes, because many people in the West think that Buddhism is all about meditating. It is true, meditation is, one of the most important and profound teachings in Buddhism, but there are different kinds of meditation. Meditation, like I was speaking of the shamatha and vipassana meditation, but it is more than meditating. Actually, it's practicing of the 6 paramitas or this accumulation of merit. That is also a meditation, because that is the path, to reach enlightenment. In the Buddha's teaching, it is said that right now, as far as ordinary people are concerned, the ordinary mind, is completely developed, and therefore the negative emotions are completely manifested in us. It's completely manifested. So that is why we are not actually able to see the true nature mind or dharmakaya, because what we see, we call it samsara. The world is manifestation of that mind, the illusion, for example. So that has now covered our true nature of the mind right now.